Welcome to Victory Stoic, the channel where ancient Stoic philosophy becomes your most powerful tool for overcoming challenges, building unshakable strength, and taking control of your life. This is not just a philosophy. It's a roadmap to mastery over yourself and the chaos around you. Today we're confronting a brutal truth. There are habits, silent and insidious, that weaken you daily. They sap your strength, steal your opportunities, and worst of all, they destroy your confidence in love, the one place where connection and meaning should thrive. These habits don't just hold you back, they slowly erase the person you're meant to become. What are these habits, and why are they so devastating? Ask yourself this. Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle of failure, repeating the same mistakes in work, in relationships, especially in love? Do you tell yourself, it's not a big deal, or things will get better, only to find that they never do? That no matter how hard you try, you're stuck, powerless to change the path you're on. In today's episode, we'll uncover 9 toxic habits that are secretly making you weak. More importantly, I'll share with you life-changing lessons from Stoicism, tools not just for reflection, but for action. These are the strategies to reclaim your strength, both in life and in love. If you're ready to confront these truths and rise above them, let's begin. Habit 1: depending on material possessions for happiness. There's an old story about a man who lived in a glittering palace. His halls were lined with gold, his tables piled with the finest feasts, and his closets overflowing with silks and jewels. From the outside, his life seemed perfect, a dream of wealth and luxury. But inside the palace, the man was restless. No matter how much he acquired, he felt a strange emptiness gnawing at him. He told himself, "I just need more. More riches, more beauty, more things to fill the void." One day, he heard of a treasure said to bring ultimate happiness. A gem so rare and precious that its owner would never want anything again. Fueled by this hope, he sold half of his palace to fund a great expedition. He crossed deserts, climbed mountains, and searched every corner of the earth. Finally, he found it. A brilliant diamond, glowing with light from within. Triumphant, he returned home and placed the diamond at the center of his palace. For a while, he felt joy. He guessed to marvel at his new treasure. He told himself, "Now, at last, I will be happy." But as the days passed, the emptiness returned, deeper than before. The diamond didn't shine quite as brightly. It was just another object, another thing. And he realized with a sinking heart that the void inside him could never be filled with anything from the outside. This story might sound like a fable, but how often do we live it ourselves? We chase the next car, the bigger house, the trendier gadget, believing that these things will make us whole. In love, we fall into the same trap, thinking that expensive gifts, fancy dates, or picture-perfect moments will create a meaningful connection. But when the glow fades, when the thrill of the purchase is gone, what's left? The Stoics knew this truth long ago. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire and could have had anything he desired, wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." True happiness, they believed, comes not from what you own, but from who you are. It's found in the values you live by, the relationships you nurture, and the peace you cultivate within. So how do you step off the treadmill of materialism? Start by asking yourself this: what truly matters to me? Is it the things I own, or the life I create? Is it the fleeting thrill of a purchase, or the lasting connection I share with the people I love? When you shift your focus from acquiring to appreciating, you begin to see the abundance already around you. And what about love? Remember, the strongest relationships are not built on material gifts, but on trust, understanding, and shared values. A diamond ring may sparkle, but it will never replace the light of a genuine connection. The man in the story eventually left his palace. He gave away his treasures and traveled the world again, not to seek more, but to give more. And for the first time, his heart felt full, because he realized the truth. Happiness was never in the diamond, the palace, or the feast. It was within him all along. Maybe it's time to stop searching for treasures outside and start uncovering the ones within. Habit 2: avoiding difficulties. Avoiding difficulties is the quiet anthem of the coward. It's the subtle whisper in your mind that says, "Take the easy way out. Leave it for later. Run before it gets hard." It wraps itself in the illusion of self-preservation, convincing you that dodging challenges will protect you. But in truth, avoidance isn't safety, it's surrender. It's the slow erosion of your strength, the silent theft of your potential, and the cowardice that keeps you from becoming who you could be. Think about it. How many times have you walked away when things got tough? When your job became demanding, did you look for excuses to quit rather than ways to improve? When a relationship started to struggle, did you choose to leave rather than fight to save it? Perhaps you've told yourself, this isn't worth the pain, but deep down, you know the real reason. You were afraid. Afraid of the effort, afraid of failure, afraid of what confronting the challenge would reveal about you. In love, this habit is particularly devastating. When the honeymoon phase fades and reality sets in, avoiding difficulty is the first step toward destruction. A partner says something that hurts you. Do you have the courage to confront it, or do you swallow the pain and let resentment fester? A disagreement arises. Do you work through it together, or do you retreat, hoping time will fix what you're unwilling to face? The coward doesn't stay to fight for love. They leave, blaming incompatibility or bad timing, when the truth is they lack the fortitude to grow. The Stoics had no patience for this kind of weakness. Epictetus famously said, "Difficulties are things that show a person what they are." Challenges aren't curses, they're mirrors. They reveal your character, your strength, and your capacity to endure. Avoiding them doesn't protect you. It blinds you to who you are and who you could be. Imagine a tree that grows in a sheltered valley, untouched by wind or storms. Its branches are thin, its roots shallow. When the first strong gust comes, it snaps, unable to stand. Now picture a tree growing on a windswept hill. It's battered by storms, its roots digging deep to anchor it against the gales. That tree doesn't just survive, it thrives. Its strength forged by adversity. You are that tree. Each difficulty you face is the storm that forces your roots to grow deeper. Every time you avoid a challenge, you rob yourself of that growth. You choose to remain weak, fragile, and dependent on a false sense of security. And here's the cruel irony. The challenges you avoid today will only grow larger tomorrow, casting longer shadows until you can no longer ignore them. So ask yourself, what are you running from? A tough conversation? A broken relationship? A daunting goal? Whatever it is, turn around and face it. The pain of avoidance is far greater than the discomfort of confrontation. Strength isn't built in comfort, it's forged in struggle. The truth is harsh, but it's also liberating. You don't grow by running, you grow by staying. By leaning into the storm, by facing the hardship, by proving to yourself that you can endure. It's not easy, it's not supposed to be, but when you stop avoiding difficulties, you stop being a coward, and you start becoming a warrior. Habit 3, fear of failure. Fear of failure, it's a poison that seeps into every corner of your life. It whispers lies, telling you that you're not good enough, that you shouldn't even try. Because if you fail, you'll confirm every doubt you've ever had about yourself. It keeps you small, safe, and stagnant. And the worst part? It doesn't just affect your career or your ambitions. It destroys you in love too. Imagine this. You've been watching someone from afar, someone who ignites something in you, someone who makes you feel alive. But instead of stepping forward and speaking your truth, you hold back. What if they say no, you think? What if I embarrass myself? And so you choose silence over vulnerability. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and before you know it, that opportunity, the one that could have changed everything, is gone. You're left with regret, asking yourself what could have been if only you had been brave enough to risk rejection. In your career, it's the same story. You've had ideas, dreams, and goals that could push you to new heights, but fear of failure has kept you rooted in mediocrity. You avoid the risks, telling yourself, it's better not to try than to fail. But deep down, you know that's a lie. Every time you play it safe, you betray the version of yourself that you could be. You trade growth for comfort, ambition for security, and passion for predictability. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful Stoic leaders, faced failure on an unimaginable scale. As Emperor of Rome, every decision he made carried the weight of an empire. And yet, he taught us this: what stands in the way becomes the way. Failure isn't the end, it's the beginning of growth. It's the teacher who sharpens your skills, strengthens your resolve, and forces you to confront what you're truly made of. Think of a time when you failed. Maybe it was a relationship that fell apart, a job you didn't get, or a dream you abandoned because the road was too hard. Did the world end? Or did you learn something about yourself? Your resilience, your ability to rise again? That's the lesson of Stoicism. Failure isn't the enemy. Fear is. To overcome the fear of failure, you must embrace the possibility of falling short. The Stoics didn't see obstacles as barriers. They saw them as the path itself. Each failure is a chance to refine your approach, gain wisdom, and build the inner strength that only comes from facing adversity head-on. If you're afraid to fail in love, remind yourself that rejection is temporary, but regret lasts forever. If you're afraid to fail in life, remember that every great success is built on the foundation of countless failures. The only real failure is never trying at all. The question is, will you let fear dictate your life, or will you take the first step toward becoming the person you were meant to be? Habit 4. Comparing yourself to others. In the ancient myths, there's a tale of a hero who gazes into a magical mirror. The mirror does not reflect who he is, but who he wishes to be. Stronger, richer, more admired. Day after day he stares into it, enchanted by this vision of perfection, yet tormented by the gap between his reality and the illusion. Over time he withers away, consumed by envy and despair, his greatness forgotten, eclipsed by the shadows of what could have been. Comparing yourself to others is much the same. It's like gazing into that mythical mirror, always seeing what you lack instead of what you possess. You scroll through endless feeds of curated perfection, measuring your life against a highlight reel. You see the achievements, the beauty, the love that others display, and in your heart, a quiet voice whispers, "Why can't I have that? Why am I not enough?" This habit doesn't just steal your joy, it drains your strength. Instead of building your own life, you become obsessed with what others have built. In love, it's a venom that seeps into your relationships. You compare your partner to someone else's, your connection to their story, your journey to their destination. You might even feel the sting of jealousy when your partner succeeds, as if their light diminishes your own. What could have been a bond of trust becomes a battlefield of insecurities, a place where neither of you feels truly seen or valued. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, understood this ancient trap. "No man was ever wise by chance," he wrote. "Wisdom, strength, and fulfillment don't come from wishing for someone else's path. They come from walking your own." The Stoics knew that the greatest enemy to contentment isn't hardship, it's comparison. The only life you are meant to live is your own, and the only person you are meant to surpass is who you were yesterday. Imagine for a moment that your life is a grand quest, a journey through uncharted lands. The roads you take, the mountains you climb, the victories and defeats along the way, they are yours and yours alone. Looking at another's path is not only useless, it's dangerous. Their trials are not your trials, their treasures are not your treasures. The more time you spend coveting their journey, the less time you have to conquer your own. But how do you escape the mirror's spell? Begin by turning away from it. Focus on what you have rather than what you lack. Celebrate the victories, no matter how small. Remind yourself that everyone's story is written in invisible ink. You see the triumphs, but not the struggles behind them. And above all, invest in your growth. Build your skills, nurture your relationships, and cultivate the values that will guide you through the storms of life. You are not a shadow of someone else's light. You are your star, burning brightly on a path no one else can follow. The world doesn't need another version of them. It needs the truest version of you. So step away from the mirror, leave the comparisons behind, and embrace the extraordinary adventure that is your life. Habit 5. Being ruled by emotions. Emotions are beautiful, aren't they? They color our lives, give depth to our experiences, and make us human. But left unchecked, they can also become a storm, wild, destructive, and utterly unforgiving. When you let your emotions rule you, you risk being swept away, losing sight of who you are and what truly matters. Picture this. A single moment of unchecked anger turns a quiet evening into a battlefield. A fleeting wave of jealousy sours a relationship built on trust. A hasty decision, made in the heat of frustration, leaves you with nothing but regret. In love especially, emotions can feel like both a blessing and a curse. They can bring passion and connection, But when they spiral out of control, they have the power to destroy the very thing they once nurtured. It's not just in relationships, though. Think about the choices you've made in moments of emotional chaos. The sharp words you couldn't take back. The impulsive actions you wish you'd never taken. The times you let your fear, anger, or despair dictate your path, only to find yourself lost. The storm calms eventually, but by then, the damage is done. And there you are, standing amidst the wreckage, wondering how it all went so wrong. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who understood the human heart better than most, wrote, "You become what you give your attention to." Emotions, he believed, were like fire. If you feed them, they grow. But if you step back, if you breathe and observe, they lose their power over you. This is not about suppressing how you feel. It's about learning to navigate the storm without letting it consume you. Imagine your mind as a calm lake. When emotions rage, it's like a stone being thrown into the water, creating ripples that disturb the surface. But beneath those ripples, the depths remain untouched, steady and serene. This is the state the Stoics strived for, not an absence of feeling, but a mastery of response. They taught that by focusing on what truly matters, and by grounding yourself in your values, you could find peace even in the fiercest storm. So, how do you break free from the grip of your emotions? Begin with awareness. When anger rises, recognize it without judgment. When jealousy creeps in, ask yourself what it's trying to tell you. When despair threatens to pull you under, look for the light, the values, the people, the truths that anchor you. This practice isn't easy, but it's the key to freedom. Remember, emotions are not your enemy. They are the waves, and you are the ship. Let them move around you. Let them test your strength, but never let them steer your course. Because when you master your emotions, you don't just survive the storm. You learn to dance in the rain, to find beauty in the chaos, and to move forward with grace. Habit 6. Procrastination. Procrastination is the thief of time, the silent killer of dreams. It disguises itself as a harmless delay, a small push to tomorrow, to next week, or when the time feels right. But here's the brutal truth. Procrastination isn't harmless. It's a slow poison, robbing you of your potential, one day at a time. And the most insidious part? You don't even realize the damage until it's too late. In life, procrastination holds you back from achieving your goals. That project you've been meaning to start, it sits untouched. That job application you've been avoiding, it remains unsent. Days turn into months and months into years, until the opportunity you once had vanished. You console yourself with excuses. I wasn't ready, it wasn't the right time, or I'll do it later. But deep down, you know the truth. You didn't act because you were afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of effort, or maybe even afraid of success. And what about love? Procrastination is just as devastating. Imagine this. You're in a relationship that's faltering. You know you need to have that difficult conversation to address the growing distance, but you keep putting it off. Not today, you think. I'll wait until the mood is right, until I feel more confident, until things get worse. But guess what? They will get worse. Problems don't solve themselves, and the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to bridge the gap. Or maybe you're not in a relationship, but you've met someone who sparks something in you. You feel the pull to reach out, to leap, but procrastination whispers, wait. Don't rush. There will be another chance. Yet sometimes there isn't another chance. Sometimes that hesitation is all it takes to lose the moment forever. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, put it bluntly, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? This isn't just a call to action, it's a wake-up call. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. Time doesn't slow down so you can find the perfect moment. The Stoics understood this deeply. They lived by the principle of urgency, knowing that the only time you truly have is now. Think about your life right now. What are you putting off? Maybe it's a goal you've always dreamed of achieving, but you're waiting for the perfect set of circumstances. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have, but you're afraid of the discomfort it will bring. Or maybe it's a risk you want to take, but you're paralyzed by the thought of what could go wrong. Here's the reality. Perfection is an illusion, and waiting for it is a waste of time. If you want to conquer procrastination, you need to take action. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control. And the one thing you can always control is your effort. Even the smallest step forward is better than standing still. Stop waiting for the stars to align. Write the letter, make the call, have the conversation, take the risk, because every moment you spend procrastinating is a moment you'll never get back. The clock is ticking. The question is, will you act now, or will you let procrastination steal another day of your life? Habit 7. Complaining and blaming others. Complaining and blaming, it's the easy way out, isn't it? When life doesn't go your way, when love crumbles, or when the weight of the world feels unbearable, it's so tempting to point the finger elsewhere. It's their fault, you say. They didn't care enough. They didn't understand me. Life isn't fair. At first, it feels like a release, a way to lighten the burden. But deep down, you know it doesn't solve anything. It only makes the pain worse. Imagine this. You're in a relationship and things aren't going well. You feel unseen, unappreciated, and maybe even unloved. Instead of looking inward, instead of asking, what can I do to improve this, you choose to complain. You pick at every flaw in your partner, finding comfort in the idea that it's their shortcomings, not yours, that are to blame. Slowly, this resentment builds a wall of anger, of hurt, of distance. And before you know it, they're gone. Not because of what they did, but because of what you refused to do. In other areas of life, it's the same story. You didn't get the promotion you wanted, so you blame your boss. You're stuck in a rut, so you blame the economy, your upbringing, the people around you. But no matter how loudly you complain or how convincingly you shift the blame, one truth remains. The problem is still there. And as long as you refuse to take responsibility, it will never change. The Stoic philosopher Seneca reminds us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is one of the hardest lessons to accept because it demands complete honesty with yourself. It means admitting that the way you feel, the way you act, the way your life looks right now, is largely within your control. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because if you accept responsibility, there's no one left to blame. It's all on you. But there's also freedom in this truth. Because if your reaction is the problem, then your reaction can also be the solution. The power to change your life doesn't lie in others, it lies in you. You don't have to be a victim of your circumstances. You can choose to stop complaining, stop blaming, and start acting. This isn't easy. When things fall apart, it's natural to feel hurt, to feel angry, to want to point the finger. But every second you spend complaining is a second you could spend building. Every ounce of energy you waste blaming others is the energy you could use to change your reality. So ask yourself, what have you been complaining about? Who have you been blaming? And what would happen if, just for today, you stopped? If you choose to take ownership of your life, even in the smallest way. It's not fair, I know. Life isn't fair, but fairness isn't the point. The point is what you do next. Will you keep building walls of resentment and regret? Or will you take responsibility and start tearing them down? Only when you stop blaming the world can you start rebuilding yourself. Habit 8. Living without clear goals. Let's face it, living without clear goals is like being a ship adrift at sea. No map, no destination, no idea where you're going, just hoping the wind will take you somewhere good. Spoiler alert, it won't. Life doesn't work that way. If you don't know where you're headed, you're going to end up wherever the tide decides to dump you. And spoiler alert number 2, it's rarely a beach paradise. In your daily life, this lack of direction feels like being busy without being productive. You're always doing something. Scrolling through social media, binge-watching shows, hopping from one distraction to another. You tell yourself, I'll figure it out tomorrow, but tomorrow turns into next week, next month, and eventually, never. Meanwhile, the days slip through your fingers, and you're left wondering why you still feel stuck. And then there's love. Oh, love without purpose. What a roller coaster. You meet someone, sparks fly, emotions run wild, and suddenly, you're caught up in the whirlwind. But here's the problem. When there's no goal, no shared vision, you're not building a relationship. You're just chasing feelings. It's like eating dessert for every meal. Sure, it's sweet at first, but eventually it leaves you empty, craving something more substantial. The Stoics had no time for this aimless floundering. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled an empire while writing meditations on life's purpose, said it best, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Translation: stop blaming life for your lack of direction and start using your beautiful brain to figure out what you want. Think about it. How much time have you wasted on things that didn't matter? Jobs you hated, but stayed in anyway. Relationships you knew weren't going anywhere, but clung to out of habit. Decisions you avoided because, well, deciding is hard. Living without goals doesn't just waste your time. It drains your energy and leaves you with nothing to show for it. Setting goals doesn't have to be complicated. Start small. Ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like a year from now? 5 years from now? What kind of partner do I want to be? What kind of relationships do I want to build? Write it down, even if it feels silly or vague. The act of defining your goals is the first step toward achieving them. Living with purpose is about more than just ticking boxes or reaching milestones. It's about knowing where you're going, so you don't waste your life wandering. The Stoics believed that a life well lived was one lived with intention. So grab the metaphorical wheel of your ship, pick a direction, and start sailing. Because here's the thing, if you don't choose your path, someone else will choose it for you. And trust me, their map doesn't have your happiness as the destination. Habit 9, being too busy to reflect on yourself. We live in a world that celebrates being busy. It's almost a badge of honor. When someone asks how you're doing, the default response is, I've been so busy. Busy with work, busy with social commitments, busy with the endless to-do lists that seem to multiply overnight. And yet, beneath this constant motion lies a truth that's hard to admit. Busyness is often just a distraction. A way to avoid looking inward. A way to avoid confronting what matters. Think about your daily life. Your alarm goes off, and the first thing you reach for is your phone. You scroll through emails, check messages, and dive into social media, bombarded by notifications before you've even had your first cup of coffee. The day is a whirlwind of meetings, errands, and obligations, and by the time you finally get home, all you can do is collapse onto the couch and binge watch a show just to decompress. Then it's bedtime, and the cycle starts all over again. Where in that blur of activity are you? Where's the time to reflect, to breathe, to ask yourself, am I living the life I want, or just going through the motions? In relationships, this habit can be just as destructive. You're so busy juggling work deadlines, social obligations, and personal goals that you forget to nurture your connections. You miss the subtle signs that your partner feels distant, that your friend is struggling, that you've drifted from the people who matter most. You tell yourself, I'll make time for them later. But later never comes. And one day, you look up from your packed schedule and realize you've built a life full of activities, but empty of meaning. The Stoic philosopher Seneca warned against this centuries ago. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful. We fiercely protect our money, our belongings, and even our reputations, but we let time, the most precious resource of all, slip through our fingers as if it's infinite. It's not. And when you fill every moment with busyness, you're not living, you're just existing. So how do you break free? Start small. Take a moment today to pause, even if it's just 5 minutes. Put down your phone, step away from the chaos, and ask yourself some uncomfortable but necessary questions. Am I happy? Am I spending my time on what truly matters? When was the last time I did something just for myself? For example, think about the last time you worked late into the evening, sacrificing time with your family or a moment of quiet for yourself. Was it worth it? Did that extra email, that additional hour, truly change your life? Or did it just leave you more exhausted? Now think about the weekend plans you canceled because you were too busy, or the gym session you skipped because there wasn't time. These small choices add up, and before you know it, weeks, months, or even years have passed without you ever stopping to reflect on why you're so busy in the first place. The answer isn't to quit your job or abandon your responsibilities. It's to reclaim your time with intention. Schedule moments of stillness the way you would a meeting or a deadline. Turn off your notifications for an hour and go for a walk. Write in a journal, meditate, have a real conversation with someone you care about without distractions. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities. The modern world will always push you to do more, be more, and achieve more. But the Stoics remind us that a well-lived life isn't about how much you do. It's about how deeply you live. Don't let busyness rob you of your most important relationship, the one you have with yourself. Because at the end of the day, all the productivity in the world is meaningless if you're too busy to enjoy the life you're building. Conclusion: we've explored the 9 toxic habits that silently drain your strength, both in life and in love. Fear of failure, procrastination, complaining and blaming, living without purpose, being ruled by emotions, comparing yourself to others, relying on material possessions, avoiding difficulties, and being too busy to reflect. Each of these habits chips away at the person you're meant to be. But here's the good news: every one of them can be overcome. The ancient wisdom of Stoicism isn't just philosophy. It's a guide for reclaiming your power and building a life of meaning, resilience, and connection. So what's next? Don't just listen, act. Choose one lesson from today's episode and put it into practice. Whether it's confronting a fear, letting go of comparisons, or taking a moment to pause and reflect, you'll find that change begins not with grand gestures, but with a single step. And the beauty of Stoicism is that every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to the strength and clarity you seek. If this video resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. This is just the beginning. Together, we'll uncover more lessons, more truths, and more ways to master ourselves and the challenges life throws at us. Remember this as you move forward. Strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, brick by brick, habit by habit, every single day. So start building today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Stay strong, stay focused, and stay stoic.